interested in what he's prepared for us than he is interested in what we have messed up. And I'm grateful, so grateful that life did not pass me by. And I never became aware or connected to or in relationship with this God that we serve. I am grateful and humbled to be able to share a word with you today that our pastor, the bishop, would allow me these moments behind this sacred desk. I'm also grateful and excited about everything that's going on in Berean right now. This is an exciting time for Berean Christian Church. I'm not sure if you're aware of it. You may want to turn and ask your neighbor, did you know? Ask them. That this is an exciting time for Berean right now. Not only are we preparing to start building a new building, but if you've gotten any revelation from the Kingdom Man and Kingdom Woman series, you understand that God is getting ready to bring a new church into a new building. I wish I had some Bible readers here today. The Bible says it's not good to pour new wine in the old skins because the old skins are bust, and it's not good to pour old wine in the new skins because you'll ruin the new skins. So not only in this time is God preparing us for a new building, but he's preparing us to become a new church. A church full of kingdom men and kingdom women. If you're sitting next to somebody, turn and ask them, what kind of man or woman are you? Because there's a difference between a church man and a kingdom man. Pastor has left us with a word that comes out of the gospel according to Mark, the 14th chapter. As you find it, I want to say hello to my best friend. She's here, my wife, Miss Tiffany Edwards, the caramel in my macchiato. Yes, indeed. Tastes good and picks me up. Yeah. Mark chapter 14, verses 3 through 6. Out of the King James Version, it reads like this: and being in Bethany in the house of Simon the leper, as he sat back at meat, there came a woman having an alabaster box of ointment of spikenard, very precious, and she brake it and poured it on his head. And there were some that had indignation within themselves and said, why was this waste made of the ointment? For it might have been sold for more than 300 pence and the money given to the poor. And they murmured against her. And Jesus said, let her alone. Why trouble ye her? She hath wrought a good work on me. And for a few moments, I want to talk and teach on this simple thought and theme as God would grant grace and guidance. The type of impact your giving can have. the type of impact your giving can have. All month long here at Berean Christian Church, we are talking about giving because we are in the month of March. Ushers, you can feel free to readjust at any time. I actually practiced that in my sermon. All month long, we've been talking about giving because here at Berean Christian Church, the month of March precedes a very special day at Berean Christian Church known as First Fruits. First Fruits. This is where we give sacrificially. There are 2 times in the year where we give sacrificially here at Berean Christian Church. The first is the first Sunday in April, and the other time that we give sacrificially is during anniversary time. It is important, an important practice here at Berean Christian Church that in all of our getting, we get an understanding. Because giving is good. The money spends the same whether you know why you're giving it or whether you don't. But for the sake of the giver, it is important that you know why you're giving so that you can give with the proper attitude and perspective. If anybody's been in a relationship of any significance, you've perhaps at some point or another uttered the words, it's not about what you say, but it's how you say it. I'm not so caught up with the words, but watch your tone. No, I'm sorry. I got that from a movie. Such is the discourse, the discipline detailed here in this discourse of St. Mark chapter 14. And I would encourage you in your time of study, your time of meditation, your moments of intimacy with God. That's why I like 9:30 service. That's why I like 9:30 service. I would encourage you to go back and you don't have to tackle chapter 14 in its entirety. As a matter of fact, chapter 14 is the longest chapter in the book of Mark. But I would encourage you to go back and read from verses 1 through verses 11. Verses 1 through verses 11. And you will find some of the most interesting reading in all of the Bible. Literally. I'm not joking. What you'll find, 3 different situations occur in verses 1 through 11. First, you have the leadership, the religious leaders of that day plotting against Jesus. Verse 1 and 2, they're plotting against Jesus. Verses 3 through 9, that's where I'll be preaching from today. You find this really unparalleled act of worship, this unparalleled gift that is given to Jesus. And then in verses 10 and 11, you find Jesus, one of Jesus's own, conspiring against him. You have them plotting against him in verses 1 and 2. You have one of his own betraying him and conspiring with those who are plotting against him in verses 10 through 11. But in the midst of these 11 verses, you have this jewel made up of 7 verses that deals with a woman making a sacrifice that I think teaches us a lot about giving. First of all, you need to understand that this is a very unique opportunity that she has. A very unique opportunity. Now, sometimes we can take for granted, since we have an opportunity to give every Sunday, and we have an opportunity to give every Tuesday, and we have an opportunity to give online, or to text and give, or to go to the kiosk and give, or to have pastor come by our house and pick up our envelopes to give. We can sometimes take giving and the opportunities for giving for granted, but I want to try to shed some light on this thing as I break it down before we go into the 3 points that you have on your outline. The opportunity. Jesus is preparing to die. As a matter of fact, the scene that we read takes place on the Thursday before the Saturday that the Passover was to take place. What you need to understand about the Passover is that it involved taking a year-old lamb and sacrificing it, and a family gathering together to eat the lamb that was slain, to partake in it. Now, you couldn't just go by the store, swing by old Publix, and pick up one of the mesquite flavored year-old lambs. It was a different day in that day. The lamb that you ate was one that you had to prepare. And so the lamb, before it could be sacrificed, the lamb, before it could be cooked and prepared or eaten, it had to be prepared. And so here is this woman, this unnamed woman in Mark, and she recognizes Jesus because she's a kingdom woman. She sees Jesus differently than the other people that are around him, and she recognizes this is the lamb that is about to be slain. And so she breaks all etiquette and enters into this male-only fellowship to prepare the lamb for the people. And the text tells us that the oil that she used was worth more than 300 pence. 300 pence was a year's worth of wages. So if you work a job and you think about what you got paid last year, that was the value of the oil that she used to pour on the head of Jesus. So for some of you, you could see why the disciples who were there with Jesus were offended. You could reason why they made such a fuss. But for those who are kingdom-minded, kingdom-minded.
All right.
Let me just park there for a second, because many of us are church-minded. But we can stop short of being kingdom-minded. That's something you need to understand about a kingdom that's different than a democracy. In a democracy, we go around the world and we spread democracy. A kingdom colonizes. So they go and settle in a place and take rule over a place, and then affect the place that they're colonizing with their culture and their practices. Follow me. That's why in the Bahamas they speak the type of English that they speak, and they drink tea 4 times a day, because it was colonized by Great Britain. The point that I'm trying to make is that as kingdom men and kingdom women, we ought to affect the areas that we are at with kingdom principles, heavenly principles. And the point that I want to stress today is that you can't give correctly if you don't see money the way the kingdom sees money. All right, here it is. When we were saved, our spirits got changed, right? Your body remained the same, right? If you was heavy when you got saved, I'm just saying. Watch this. Also, our souls remain the same. Now, for those of you who are in Master Life, you're studying right now that the soul is comprised of the mind, the will, and our emotions. Our mind, our will, our emotions. Say that with me. Our mind, our will, our emotions. Our mind is our thoughts. Our will is what we desire. Our emotions are how we feel. Now, tell me if I'm wrong. After you got saved, did you think, desire, or feel differently about money? Because most of us didn't. And that's where the church comes to a screeching halt when it has to do with giving, because our spirits have been saved, but we have not yet allowed God to save our wallets. We see sin differently, but we see money the same. And that is the struggle Sunday after Sunday after Sunday when we come to church and the giving only represents 12% of the congregation.
All right.
That was the frustration found in the text, because the woman was operating on kingdom principles. It's right there. It said that she came to Jesus with an alabaster box full of ointment. She did not open the alabaster box. She broke the alabaster box, because after this, the alabaster box would no longer have any need, because it was only made for such a time as this. Here it is. This kingdom woman understood that the oil did not belong to her. And that's one thing that hinders us sometimes, is the language that we use. Jacoby, we talk about giving to God. You ain't giving to God, you giving back to God.
Come on, preach it. Tell it.
Because everything we have, God gave to us. So that doesn't make us owners of what we possess. That makes us stewards over what we possess. And the woman was exercising good stewardship when she took this oil, when she broke the alabaster box, and when she poured this oil worth a year's worth of wages on the head of Jesus, because she understood, you only allowed me to have this spikenard so I could have the privilege of preparing your body for your burial. Eesh, glory to God. And when the people of God start to realize that the finances we have only been given to us that we might exercise stewardship over them, we will go from having a little bit to having a whole lot. All right? The woman was showing her gratitude. I asked earlier the same question that Elder Boyd asked us as he so excellently finished off that song. Hasn't he been good to you? I don't know if you've ever done something for somebody and you were excited to do it for them. And once you did it for them, for some reason, their level of gratitude didn't match your level of investment. And Mary, you just thought to yourself, oh, won't do that again. Right? That's why some are struggling today, because God has been good, but we haven't reciprocated our gratitude. I think it was Shirley Caesar who said, tell me who I gotta be to get some reciprocity. Oh, wait a minute. That was my fault. I wasn't sure these things that was Lauryn Hill, but it makes the point. It still makes the point. And we find that when the reciprocity is not there, when we don't return to God what is his, then there is a problem in the system. If it doesn't get hot enough for water to evaporate, then it won't be enough water in the atmosphere to produce rain. If there's no rain, there's no growth. So you see, when you don't return to God what is his, then the needs that you have don't get met down here. And so I think that the text shows us, I'm saying I think, but it's really pastor's sermon. I just didn't know how else to word it, but I think that the text shows us three different ways that our giving can have impact. Now, I read to you verses 3 through 6. We'll really be dealing with verses 6, 8, and 9, but I wanted to give you some context to the content. I was excited to say that when I thought about that. You know what I mean? Give some context to the content. Wanted to give some context to the content. That's preacher talk. And so we find in verse 6 that our giving can have spiritual impact. Our giving to the Lord, it can have spiritual impact. Here it is, watch. Leave her alone, said Jesus. Why are you bothering her? She has done a beautiful thing to me. Now, if you remember correctly, she broke the alabaster box, poured the spikenard on Jesus, and then the disciples started making a fuss. Will you note that generally the people in church who complain about giving are the ones who don't give? If you're complaining about church and giving to somebody and they're not responding, then just tell yourself, oh, they must be a tither. And here's the reason why us tithers and us givers don't complain about giving, because we know that it works. And even over and above that, even over and above the fact that it works, we don't complain about giving because we know the Lord is worthy. Jesus said, leave her alone. They were complaining that the oil could have had a greater purpose. So not only did they demean the woman who poured it on Jesus, but they also implied that Jesus was not worthy of such an act of worship. And when you complain about giving to the church, you're not saying that the church ain't worthy. What you're saying is that Jesus ain't worthy. He's been good, but you're saying he ain't been all that. And you'll be hard pressed to convince somebody who's had to pray all night for a loved one. You'll be hard pressed to convince somebody who's been backed into a corner, and the only way they got out is because Jesus showed up and made a way out of no way. I wish I had a few witnesses here today who had come to a point in their life where you didn't know what way was up, but you called on the Lord, and the very fact that you are here today is proof that God answers prayer.
Preaching that thing, Tracy. Preaching.
So when they rose up against her, she didn't have to move a muscle.
Okay.
Jan, when they rose up against her, she didn't have to defend herself. Jesus was sitting down eating, enjoying a plate of chicken, mashed potatoes and gravy. And when they jumped up and started talking about her, Jesus wiped his mouth, stood up, chicken bone in hand, and said, if y'all don't back up off her, I'll bust you upside your head. You don't be messing with mine. Has God ever come to your defense, and by the time you heard that folks were talking about you, they had already gotten fired? By the time you heard that folks were plotting against you, they had already been done away with? That's the reason we give, because we know we've got protection that protects us even when we don't know we need to be protected. Guillory, he stood up on her behalf. It may be the reason why the Lord ain't standing up on your behalf is because he's looking at your giving and seeing that you're trying to give full-time benefits from a part-time love. Just saying. You want to get marriage benefits from casually dating the Lord, and it don't work like that. Next point. Your giving for the Lord can have physical impact. Watch. She did what she could. This is Jesus talking. She poured perfume on my body beforehand to prepare for my burial. Now, before I extrapolate on the point, y'all gotta forgive me. I just finished my first week of seminary. But this first sentence blessed me. This is Jesus talking. He said she did what she could. And this is a great indictment against people who are not willing to give in the church. Because it shows, it indicates that all the Lord wants you to do is to do what you can. We are not competitively giving. We are giving according to what he has given us. And trust me, he knows what he has given us. The Bible says in 2 Corinthians, it says that he gives seed to the sower. And if you check your bag and you ain't got no seed, it might be because you ain't been sowing. I'll give you this example. This is easy enough. Nature teaches us that every apple that is not genetically modified produces seed, right? In every apple there is seed.